Dear children, in this session, we will be studying about the poem geography lesson from Unit 2. In this poem, the poet has described the scene of a city from a jet. He finds that cities are not neatly planned and are disorganized. He understands that water resources are the main reason for people to settle near the rivers. As the jet moves higher, he notices that people have created boundaries of hate among themselves. Before going to the poem, let's discuss about the author of this poem. He is the author. Author is Zulfikar Ghosh. See the picture. He is the author for this poem. Zulfikar Ghosh, 1935 to 2009. Zulfikar Ghosh, a famous poet and novelist who was born in India before independence. After independence, he migrated to Pakistan and now he is settled in the USA. This is a single stanza poem of 24 lines and does not have any rhyme scheme. In this poem, Ghosh talks about three things. Firstly, how everything looks from the sky. Secondly, how civilization was set up. And lastly, why people hate each other. Okay, children, now let's move on to the poem. First, I'll read this poem. When the jet sprang into the sky, it was clear why the city had developed the way it had. Seeing it scaled 6 inches to the mile, there seemed an inevitability about what on ground had looked haphazard, unplanned, and without style when the jet sprang into the sky. The poet says when the jet sprang, the second form of spring. The sprang is the second form of spring. Here it means lifted off, okay? Into the sky it was clear. So therefore the poet understood why the city had developed the way it had, because everything looked so small that a mile seemed to be like 6 inches. Everything looks small from the above. Becomes inevitability that everything developed unplanned, without style, and without any principle of an organization on the ground. Ground means here earth. The poet repeats the first line when the jet sprang into the sky. He saw all this when the jet was in the air. In the first stanza, the poet describes the scene of the city from an aeroplane or jet, which is flying high in the sky. He says that it became clear to him why the city developed according to the necessity of the people and not as per proper planning. When the poet looked at the city from the sky, it seemed unplanned and unorganized. It does not have any particular style or design. These lines shares poet perspectives about the city when viewed from a certain height. Okay, let's move on to the next stanza. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, it was clear why the country had cities where the rivers ran and why the valleys were populated. The logic of geography that land and water attracted man was clearly delineated when the jet reached 10,000 feet. In the stanza, the poet says that when the plane reached 10,000 feet in the sky, the poet came to know why the cities of countries are located near the rivers and also the valleys are so populated. Next, the poet provides the logic of geography which is clearly delineated. That is, the reason that made the people settle in an unorganized way. So, according to him, him means who? Poet. Land and water, which are the lifeline and the reason for our survival, attract the early humans. The land here refers to the green land on which we cultivated food and make the shelter. What actually this stanza explains you? When the jet flew at the height of 10,000 feet above the ground, the poet found out the cities are located near the rivers, since people preferred to say near valleys. He clearly understood the logic of geography and got to know that people settled on those lands where water is easily available. The basic necessity of human life is water, and it is required for various important activities such as agriculture, business, etc. Okay, so in this stanza, these lines expresses that feels enlightened to comprehend the logic of geography. Now let's move on to the next stanza. When the jet rose 6 miles high, it was clear the earth was round and that it had more sea than land. But it was difficult to understand that the men on the earth found causes to hate each other, to build walls across cities, and to kill. From that height, it was not clear why. In the stanza, the poet says that when the aeroplane was at the height of around 6 miles, it became clear that the earth is round and that it has more sea than land. According to him, he could not understand why people hate each other on the earth, why we build walls across cities and kill each other. At such a height, the poet sees a single earth and wonders why people are divided. He could not understand. Again, I'll explain you. In the stanza, when the plane reached the height of 6 miles, the earth looked round. The poet found that the earth has more water than land. He understood the reason because the earth has more number of seas than lands. However, one thing the poet could not figure out was why the people on the earth hate each other. They have built walls of hate across the cities to kill each other. So finally, the poet shares mankind's shame at not being able to understand the mystery behind human hatred. Thus, it is easy to understand the logic of geography from a height. However, it is very difficult to understand why humans hate one another. This remains a mystery. That's all about this poem, children. Now let's move on to the new words in this poem. First one is inevitable, that cannot be avoided. Second one is haphazard, without plan or order. Last one is delineated. Delineated means shown.
This video, subscribe this channel and click the bell icon for the upcoming videos. Until then, we'll meet you in the next session. Thank you. Bye bye.